Let's walk through the main sections of Sherpa Orchestrator and figure out how they relate to each other. And we'll start with the licenses, because every robot needs a license and there is no RPA without robots. This is where you can manage all your licenses. The columns of the table show all important information. License type, its capacity, how many robots is it assigned to, and how many robots are currently working under this license. Next is the robots section that you need to manage your robots. The lower table shows robots of all types, both attended and unattended, as well as coordinators. And in the top table you can manage the groups they are included in. It is worth noting that in this context, a robot is a work environment configured to perform automated processes, with no references to actions to be performed. Let's go further. Processes. Processes are robot scenarios, those algorithms and automation logic that are defined by a developer in Sherpa Designer. You can upload a new process or a new version of an existing process directly from Sherpa Designer. These versions are listed in the table below. Jobs. In this section you will find all executed, running and scheduled robot launches tied to processes. A few words about the table columns you'll find in most sections of Orchestrator. You can adjust them quite flexibly for your needs, change their size, sequence, and choose which one to show and which one to hide. The data in the columns can also be adjusted to your current task. You can sort and filter it by specified parameters. Also, you can export table data to an Excel spreadsheet file or CSV file, and in some cases import data to a table. Besides manually creating a job for a specific robot to perform a specific process, you can use the functionality of the following section. Triggers. In this section you can create sets of rules that will execute a specific process. Specify which robot or group of robots should execute it, when it should be done, or what events must match, when an email is received, or when there is a change in the queue of tasks. Don't worry, we're almost at the point of explaining what that is. Trigger has a lot of optional settings, allowing you to fine-tune the robot launch logic you need. Now it's a perfect time to move on to the queues section. Queues are groups of tasks that need to be processed. For example, one of the queues can be dedicated to orders from online store. In this case, each order will be a separate task in this queue. In our example, tasks should be created automatically using API or a robot. Tasks can contain useful information that can be processed by a robot. For example, a hash table with parameter value pairs, table, or text. In the text parameter you can put, for instance, the text of the customer's comment or JSON with all the information about the order. To understand the process, let's go back a step, and I will ask for your attention here. When a new task appears in a queue, a trigger that is configured for this event will create a job, to start a robot, for executing a process, to process the data attached to the task. If that's sorted out, let's move on to robot messages. The table in this section contains error messages or other information from robots and from processes they execute. These logs can be written by both unattended and attended robots. Also, if you check the screenshot checkbox in the login block settings, a screenshot of the robot screen will be saved in the Orchestrator along with the message. These screenshots can be viewed directly in Orchestrator and are extremely handy when debugging unattended robots. Assets is a repository of data that can be accessed by robots. Imagine you have a bunch of robots with common functionality. According to their processes, they need to authorize on a website. If a developer has specified login and password as constant variables in process, and the password is changed, the robot will not be able to authorize and perform its task. A developer will have to update the data in all affected processes and redeploy them. However, if you specify in a process to refer to an asset in Orchestrator, robots will always have up-to-date credentials. Credentials are stored and transferred in an encrypted form and are easy to update. But assets can also be text type. For example, you can store some settings in it. Therefore, to change a process parameter, you don't need to edit a process, but only an asset. Assets can also be a calendar type, which contains a list of dates. Such assets are used in triggers to set trigger conditions, and also in processes using some blocks from the Date and Time palette in Sherpa Designer. The next section is storage. It is Orchestrator's built-in repository of files that can be accessed by robots. Whether it's an Excel spreadsheet or an archive of documents, robots can also modify and upload files. Like assets, files in storage can be grouped into folders. Packages. This is where reusable automation components are stored. A developer can share their solutions with colleagues, and they in turn can improve the package. Packages support versioning. Directly from Sherpa Designer, you can download a particular version of a package or upload a new one. The content of many of the sections we've discussed can be created and modified through the API. In this section, a developer can find all the necessary information to work with Orchestrator via API. Accounts. In this section, the administrator can create tenants of Orchestrator. That is completely isolated Orchestrator environments. Tenants can be, for example, different organizations or departments, and users of a tenant will not have access to any data from another tenant. Users. This is where you can find all the users of the account that can have access to its data. Each user has their own credentials to access Orchestrator, and they can either be local or use LDAP or OpenID authentication. Users can be assigned roles, which are configured in this section. Role is a set of Orchestrator sections that will be available to users who have this role. And in the Audit section, you can find the log of Orchestrator messages, attempts to authorize in Orchestrator, changes of important settings, and other system messages.